You guys, there was a moment during Jimin's first night in Las Vegas where the entire stadium suddenly went quiet for half a second, and somehow, that silence felt louder than the screams. Like, genuinely louder. Because everyone knew they were witnessing something unreal. The lights inside the stadium were still dimmed when the intro started echoing through the air, and you could already feel the tension building before he even appeared. Thousands and thousands of armies holding glowing light sticks high above their heads, the entire venue painted in waves of purple and silver, people shaking, crying, grabbing each other's arms because deep down, everybody felt it coming. And honestly, no fan cam could fully capture what it felt like in that moment. The bass vibrated through the floor so hard you could feel it in your chest. The screens flashed fragments of red and gold visuals from the ARIRANG album World Tour concept, and then suddenly, that silhouette. Just standing there. Still. Silent. And the second his face appeared on the giant screen, Las Vegas exploded. Not metaphorically. I mean actually exploded. The screams were so intense that you could barely hear the music for a few seconds. People were jumping, sobbing, losing their minds, and somehow in the middle of all that chaos, Jimin looked completely calm. That's what made it even crazier. He had this expression on his face like he already knew exactly what he was about to do to everyone emotionally. And can we talk about the way he walked onto that stage? Slow. Controlled. Elegant. Almost dangerous. Every movement felt intentional. The black outfit shimmering under the lights, the loose fabric moving with him like smoke, the chains catching tiny flashes of silver every time he turned his body. But it wasn't even just the clothes. It was his aura. That's the only word for it. Aura. Some performers come on stage and perform choreography. Jimin enters a stage and transforms the entire atmosphere. You could literally feel the shift in energy. And then his voice started. Soft at first. Almost fragile. The kind of voice that makes an entire stadium lean forward without realizing it. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. There's something about the way Jimin sings live that feels incredibly human, like you can hear every emotion trembling underneath the notes. And when he hit those first lines, you guys, people instantly started crying. Not later. Immediately. Because it didn't feel rehearsed. It felt personal. Like he was opening his heart in front of 70,000 people at once. And what made day one so unforgettable wasn't just the performance itself, it was the emotional whiplash of everything happening back to back. 1 second he looked impossibly soft, almost delicate under the spotlight, and then suddenly the beat dropped and his entire energy changed. That switch. That terrifying, mesmerizing switch. How does he even do that? One moment his eyes are warm and emotional, and the next he's staring directly into the camera with that sharp expression that sends the entire crowd into chaos. There was this one close-up during the second chorus where he slightly tilted his head, smirked for literally half a second, and the audience reaction was insane. I'm not exaggerating when I say people around the stadium physically collapsed into their seats. And just when everyone thought they had recovered, he did something else. The dance break. No, seriously. Can we please talk about the dance break? Because this wasn't just choreography anymore. It felt like storytelling through movement. The lighting turned dark crimson, smoke flooded the edges of the stage, and Jimin's body moved with this insane combination of precision and emotion that almost didn't look real. Every turn was sharp but fluid at the same time, every breath visible under the spotlight, every movement synced perfectly to the beat like his body was part of the music itself. And then came that moment. You know the one. The pause. Music cut out. Complete silence for one heartbeat. Jimin standing center stage, breathing heavily, hair falling slightly over his eyes, chest rising under the lights while the entire stadium screamed so loud it felt like the building might shake apart. And instead of rushing the moment, he waited. That's what made it iconic. He let the crowd feel everything. He looked around slowly at the audience, almost overwhelmed for a second, and honestly, that tiny expression on his face hit harder than any choreography. Because underneath the superstar image, you could suddenly see the human being standing there trying to absorb all that love at once. Did you feel that too? That weird ache in your chest? Because there's something emotional about seeing someone who has already achieved so much still look genuinely touched by the crowd cheering for him. And then he smiled. That smile. Soft. Tiny. Real. The kind of smile that instantly melts thousands of people at the same time. But that wasn't even the moment that shocked everyone the most. No. Because later in the show, something happened that completely changed the atmosphere again. The stage lights faded into this deep blue color, and suddenly everything felt quieter, more intimate. Even in a stadium packed with screaming fans, it somehow felt personal. Jimin walked slowly toward the extended stage, closer to the audience, and you could see fans reaching their hands out, crying uncontrollably the closer he got. And instead of keeping that untouchable superstar distance, he looked directly at them. Not generally. Directly. Making eye contact with individual fans. You could literally see people breaking down because of it. One fan near barricade covered her mouth and started sobbing the second he looked her way, and honestly, who could blame her? There's something about Jimin's presence that makes people feel seen. Even in a massive venue, he somehow creates these tiny moments that feel incredibly personal. And then came the vocals again. Raw. Emotional. Beautiful. His voice cracked slightly during one line, just barely, but instead of ruining the performance, it made the entire moment even more devastating emotionally. Because it reminded everyone that this wasn't perfection manufactured by a machine. This was real. A real person giving everything he had emotionally and physically on that stage. And ARMY felt it. Every single person felt it. You could hear fans singing the lyrics back to him so loudly that for a second, Jimin actually stopped singing and just listened. Imagine standing in front of tens of thousands of people screaming your lyrics back at you in unison under the Las Vegas night sky. Imagine what that must feel like. His expression changed completely during that moment. The confidence disappeared for a second and you could see pure emotion on his face. He looked overwhelmed. Grateful. Almost stunned. And honestly, those are the moments fans remember forever. Not just the perfect choreography. Not just the visuals. But the humanity behind it all. And just when the atmosphere became too emotional to handle, the energy exploded again. Fire effects burst from the stage. The beat slammed through the stadium. Jimin ripped into the next performance with this insane intensity that made everyone lose control all over again. His movements became sharper, more aggressive, more explosive. Sweat glimmered along his skin under the lights, his breathing heavier now, but somehow his charisma only became stronger. It's actually unbelievable how much power one person can hold on stage. There was one specific moment where the camera zoomed in while he turned during the choreography, and his expression completely changed mid-movement, from fierce to vulnerable in literally 1 second. And that contrast? That's what makes Jimin different. He never feels one-dimensional. He doesn't just perform emotions. He becomes them. And can we talk about the crowd reactions for a second, because they were absolutely insane. Every tiny movement triggered chaos. A simple shoulder roll? Screaming. A glance at the camera? Stadium-wide meltdown. A small laugh between songs? Entire audience emotionally destroyed. At one point he pushed his hair back while catching his breath, and I swear the sound from the crowd became deafening. How does he have this effect on people? Seriously. How? And yet somehow, in the middle of all that intensity, there were these incredibly soft moments too. Tiny moments. Easy to miss if you blinked. Like when he looked up at the audience during the ending of one song and his eyes looked watery under the lights. Or when he quietly laughed after hearing fans scream a lyric louder than expected. Or the way he placed his hand over his chest during the cheers, almost like he was trying to calm his own emotions. Those little moments made everything feel so much bigger somehow. Because it wasn't just a concert. It felt like a connection. Like everyone inside that stadium was experiencing the exact same emotion together at once. And honestly, that's why day one in Las Vegas already feels legendary among ARMY. Not because it was flawless. Not because it was huge. But because it felt alive. You could feel every emotion through the screen, through the fan cams, through the shaky livestream clips people were posting while literally screaming and crying. Even fans watching from home were saying they got chills just hearing the crowd reaction. That's how powerful the atmosphere was. And there's still one moment we haven't even talked about yet. Because near the end of the night, after hours of explosive performances and emotional chaos, Jimin stood under a single spotlight while the stadium lights dimmed around him. The noise slowly softened into this beautiful ocean of glowing purple lights, and for a second he just looked around quietly. No music. No choreography. Just him standing there. Taking it all in. And the expression on his face. I don't even know how to explain it. It looked like gratitude mixed with disbelief mixed with emotion he couldn't fully put into words. Like he was trying to memorize the moment himself before it disappeared. Then he gave this tiny bow toward the audience. Simple. Respectful. Sincere. And somehow that small gesture hit harder than the biggest dance break of the night. Because underneath the global superstar image, underneath the fashion, the stage effects, the screaming crowds and flashing lights, you could still see Park Jimin. Humble. Emotional. Genuine. And maybe that's why people connect to him so deeply. Because no matter how massive the stage becomes, he still performs with his whole heart exposed. And honestly you guys, when the final lights started fading and the crowd kept screaming his name over and over into the Vegas night, it didn't feel like anyone wanted to leave. It felt like everyone was desperately trying to hold on to the moment just a little longer.